Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar from a standalone CSR to a sustainable strategy. My name is Hoda Abdelhai, and I am the director of the CSR series run by Informa Middle East, including the 12th CSR Summit that is actually taking place in Dubai later this month on the 18th to the 21st of May. Today's webinar topic is a very interesting one. It talks about and addresses the issue of moving away from standalone CSR, from moving away from uncoordinated approach of CSR towards long-term sustainability strategy, and how do you develop a sustainability strategy within your organization. The leader of the webinar today is Nicholas Delaney. Before I go ahead, I just wanted to give a quick brief about the CSR Summit, which is the 12th edition that we're running this year, taking place in Dubai and the Address Hotel Dubai Marina on the 19th and the 20th of May. We have over 200 attendees attending from all different stakeholders, including government, private and public sectors, corporate sectors, NGOs, ministries, universities, including also featuring the 40 plus expert speakers within sustainability and CSR in the globe and across the region. 4 practice-filled workshops. This year we're also featuring a new NGO-focused stream, as well as the CSR Excellence Awards. For anyone who's interested or want to find more information about the summit, you can visit the website or contact the details on the screen in front of you. I'm just going to go through a brief housekeeping points before we go ahead. So today's webinar will be recorded. An email will be sent tomorrow with a link to the audio and slides. Questions can be posed throughout using the questions box that will be answered at the end of the webinar. Unanswered questions will be answered later and posted to our website. Please provide us also with your feedback at the end by following the link that will pop up. Now, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter, Mr. Nicholas Delaney. He is the founder and director of Values Added. Nicholas is a sustainability advisor with two decades of experience building high-quality partnerships and innovative fundraising and communications platforms, delivering growth and elevating the profile of corporate responsibility and environmental initiatives for leading names such as CNN in Europe and WWF in the Middle East. Now, I would like to hand over the webinar towards Nicholas. Just one moment, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you. Our topic today could easily fill an entire 2 days, so I will do my best to bring it to 45 minutes, if it's possible. And as Hoda mentioned, there will be time for a few questions, so you can keep your questions and you can type them in the end. I believe now you will see the structure of the presentation in front of you. It's quite simple. In part 2, we will focus on how companies can successfully position sustainability at the core of their business. And this is where they will create more value for their stakeholders, seize opportunities, drive innovation, and not least, fully unlock their potential for driving social and environmental change. Right now, we'll look at part 1, and we will go through some of the reasons why I will call it CSR as usual is no longer an option. We will also look at some barriers that may be on your way from getting to part 2 to the ideal part of sustainability, because I think it's important that we recognize the challenges that you are or you will be facing on this journey to becoming a sustainably led business. First slide, I wanted to quickly remove one additional barrier when we tackle this topic. And it is that it can sometimes get a bit confusing. You see all the different terminologies commonly associated with this topic, from corporate citizenship, greater good, social equity, community engagement, and many people use many different words. So just let's first agree that all these designations are in fact relevant. They are all good in their own right. They are more or less broad. Pardon me. I wanted to show this also to kind of kill a little bit the semantic debate, sustainability versus CSR. There are a few nuances between the terms and which is a subcomponent of which, but frankly, it's a bit like splitting hair. And so for the sake of this presentation, I'll be mostly referring to sustainability. What I find more useful, in fact, is to look at some common definitions of sustainability. So I'm kind of showing them all at once like that. You can see that actually the oldest was coined 3 centuries ago, at a time where in Germany where there was a nascent mining industry, which was causing a scarcity of timber and where trees were cut at an unsustainable rate. Again, it's not to kind of say which definition is more correct than the other. They are all good. But the interesting thing with this is that you can see some important words emerge in opposition or in complement with each other. First of those is long-term. Sustainability is traditionally associated with long-term perspective, but it also has a short-term impact, which you can see in the last quote. For example, if you consume less energy, it will have a very short-term impact on your profitability. Or if there is, say, a labor issue in your value chain, that's a social issue that will create a problem short-term for the company. So it's important to keep that in mind, I think, because most organizations obviously are focusing on the short term. So we don't want to discard sustainability because of that. It's meeting the needs of the present without jeopardizing the future. I'm sure you have seen the third quote, the triple bottom line, which is to say that sustainability is about profit, but it's also about people and the planet. The last quote is actually also very interesting, I think, for this topic today, because we're talking about risks and opportunities. I think it touches an important aspect in that traditionally sustainability is a lot more associated with risk mitigation rather than providing opportunities. And yet the companies that we find are the most successful in maximizing their sustainability strategy are precisely those who embark on it and see opportunities to invest in new products or to innovate or bring new processes. So this is this kind of opposition between the different terms, short-term, long-term, present, future, and last being risk and opportunities, and not least, it's a continually evolving process, which we will come back also to. Next slide. How does it look like more often than not? I wanted to kind of give a quick status quo, if you will, on common issues or barriers that we see from companies in terms of sustainability. Firstly, we often don't see much at all or very little, even if you sometimes see extensive or multiple PR for this very little that is being done. And let's be honest, it's a trend that we see a lot in this region. It is partly resulting from less regulations, probably also because there's less pressures coming from the media or the civil society in this part of the world, at least in comparison with Europe or the US. The next one is also very frequent, and it's not only specific to this region, it's actually common around the globe. It is that sustainability is frequently boxed in a very narrow space, which is when companies focus their sustainability approach on either the compliance aspect or the corporate philanthropy aspect. It's a bit like looking at sustainability from the point of view of enabling or strengthening the license to operate, or and mitigating certain long-term risks and giving back to society. And we'll see that this is okay, but it's missing key dimensions of sustainability. And in particular, it's missing the whole value creation part. By far, the most common issues are coming now. You also have very broad approaches with unclear objectives, with a number of initiatives that don't have much coordination at all internally, no necessarily logic between one another, or no logic with the business purpose. That's also a very frequent phenomenon. And the last one is probably the most difficult. How do you move away sustainability from the back room? How do you get it through the boardroom? Because, pardon me, because to be honest, until this happens, it's going to be difficult to actually integrate or ingrain sustainability into your existing business strategy and operations. So it's a very important problem and barrier, which is linked with the fact that the CEO or the senior management are not enough or not actively engaged. You hear a lot of practitioners tell you that it's while they're spending a lot of time on it, they can see it's not a priority for their company. And it is also, I mean, probably linked with this is the fact that it's still more associated with longer term risks, not with the short term, let alone being associated with business opportunities. All these factors are as many barriers for sustainability to prevent it from becoming more front and central and adding really value to your overall business, and therefore also achieving the benefits and impacts it can create. For many companies, this is kind of an acceptable status quo, but we will, and of course, I think this status quo and the acceptability of it probably is due to the fact that business as usual is also very strong. And by definition, sustainability is about change, is driving change. So now let's look at actually why CSR as usual is no longer acceptable or no longer an option. Let's start and let's hear it from your key stakeholders actually. I wanted to start with the stakeholders who typically are always absent of the debate, our children and generations to come. I think it's only fair to spare a thought for them, and not only that, but also to be guided by these thoughts when we tackle this topic. Here you see a caricature, and of course it's a caricature, but I'm sure you get the message across as to where this CSR or business as usual is taking us, and it's not taking us to a good place. Let's briefly, because it could be an entire session on it, but we'll cover briefly what's the type of problem we're facing as humanity. Keeping in mind again that these issues impact businesses on many levels, and essentially you cannot do business on a dead planet. So today we are 7.2 billion humans. It's triple the size of the world population of 1950. It won't be long before we reach the 8 billions mark. It's going to be around 2024, 25. And by 2050, we'll certainly be above the 9 million, not certainly, but like the medium scenarios of UN populations say that we will be above 9 billion human. Already today, humanity globally is using 50% more natural resources than the Earth can renew. In other words, we live a bit like we had 1.5 planets of natural resources at our disposal. And this is actually especially true, or I should say worse, for our region, the Gulf region, because we combine both very fast economic development, which is a good thing, a growing population, unsustainable and very high consumption levels in terms of water and energy, all of this in a hot and dry climate. So by 2050, a major issue globally for us is that the global economy will be threefold the size it is today. That's again very good news because it means more and more people will be taken out of poverty. But the bad news is that humanity is likely to consume the equivalent of 3 planets of natural resources every year. And of course, this is completely unsustainable and it puts unsustainable pressures on our environment. This will also lead to catastrophic consequences as far as climate change. On the right, you see one of the main drivers of these changes to our planet is the massive amount of carbon dioxide emitted in the atmosphere. In large parts, it is due to burning a lot of coal, oil, and gas to move our cars, heat our buildings, produce electricity. The concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is the highest it's ever been in hundreds of thousands of years. And this is a big concern and big driver for climate change, leading to increased temperatures, more extreme events like droughts or floods, and sea level rise. For the MENA region, it is particularly vulnerable to climate change impacts. It will experience more intensifying droughts. Water will be under a lot more stress. Supplies of groundwater, it was said recently in the UAE, could run out as soon as 2030. And the few countries in the region are relying on a desalination industry to complement, but that is in itself very energy intensive, so it's also adding to the problem. Another big problem is food security, given the high reliance of the region to food imports from regions which will precisely be impacted by more intense droughts. Sea level rise is a major problem for the region as well, considering most of the population lives along the coast. These are only some of the factors impacting the region. We could also talk about political instability, climate refugees, movements of population as a result of droughts and water scarcity, and so on. So next, stakeholders who believe it's no longer an option to continue CSR as usual are regulators. So they are more and more taking action on climate change. You see here a patchwork of important initiatives or policies in among the Gulf countries. Water is certainly among many policies at the moment. We see a big boost in terms of incentives towards renewables. Most especially the UAE recently introduced a rooftop solar panel scheme, both for companies and residential homes connected to the grid. There's more and more capacity invested towards solar energy, and it's actually interestingly done at a cost below the cost of fossil fuels, setting world records. So the idea that renewable energy was going to be an El Dorado is no longer far-fetched. It's actually a potentiality. The interventions from regulators are also very present in sectors like building or construction with green building codes. Doha, interestingly, hosted one of the annual UN conferences of parties, which was significant. They made some important announcements then on powering their desalination plants with renewables. Both Qatar and the UAE have set targets on renewables. Dubai has just actually tripled its one. Saudi Arabia announced very large investments in renewable energy capacity. And just look top left at the rising number of environmental standards and regulations that have been introduced in the UAE in the last 30 years. So, you could say these are incremental changes, and there will always be voices to say this for good or less good reasons. And let's also remember where we are. We are in a region that is still living off fossil fuels, so these steps are actually very significant. And the message is pretty clear. And the direction that is taken is clear, and it is to diversify the economy and transition to a green economy. What do your consumers think about all this? Well, their message is very consistent study after study. Only 6% think that the sole purpose of business is to make money. For shareholders. 60% think businesses should do more than donating time and money towards social and environmental issues. But they should also do advocacy for change, increasing awareness on the issues and change the way they operate. So clearly, expectations of sustainability from consumers are very high. This is because precisely the public awareness on sustainability is at an all-time high. It's partly thanks to the pressure and the work of NGOs. It's partly thanks to the media and the actions from governments themselves and businesses. So interestingly, the awareness is also very deep in our region. Sorry for the bad quality of the picture on the right-hand side. It was taken at the recent WETEX exhibition in Dubai, and this was at the stand of the Ministry of Environment and Water. And it's a brand new survey talking about the awareness of people towards waste, water, air quality, and climate change issues. And you can see the numbers are pretty high. So next slide. How, still to stay on the consumers, how is this shaping consumers' perceptions of companies? Well, it has a big impact. A couple of figures which are not on the slides. 96% of consumers from the same survey, which is the Eco Global CSR study, 96% have a positive image of companies engaging in CSR. 94% are more likely to trust them. 93% to stay loyal with them. So definitely sustainability is a powerful differentiator. Good. But that goes even further than that. And you can see on both surveys on the screen, both surveys say the same message, that sustainability influences considerably consumers' important decisions. On the left-hand side, you can see on what to buy, where to work, which products or services to recommend to others. On the right-hand side, you see that more than half of global consumers are willing to pay extra for products and services from companies that are committed to social and environmental impact. And these figures are increasing study after study. Interestingly, I find you look on the right-hand side, the numbers are significantly higher for the Middle East. So the same phenomenon applies also in the region. Now, what happens at the moment of truth? That is when the consumers are in store, online, or elsewhere about to purchase. It's not so black and white, probably. Nielsen is trying to look at this side of things, and they have surveyed a range of products and services. They found sales increases, but modest, but still an increase for products including a sustainability claim or in either on their packaging or in the promotion. But again, it's not completely black and white. And this is a recognition that price, quality, availability, promotions, other factors remain important considerations for consumers. However, these surveys really show us a continuous trend and a continuous rise on how sustainability influences consumer perception, recommendations, and purchases or investment decisions. The story is also quite significant in terms of how sustainability influences shareholders and investors. They demand more and more accountability, transparency, and disclosure from companies. This is a survey by Greenpeace and Ernst & Young. It showed first that 66% of companies reported facing more and more inquiries from shareholders and investors about sustainability-related issues. The graph shows the breadth of the questions that are being asked to them. It's not necessarily very clear, but essentially there's a category around greenhouse gas emissions, which are increasingly seen as a risk. There's a second broad category around resource consumption and scarcity, like energy consumption, risks associated with scarcity of water, sustainable sourcing of raw materials, like palm oil, forest products, and so on, and labor and human rights issues, etc., etc. All of this goes, of course, with an increasing pressure by shareholders and investors for sustainability reporting. It's also bringing to the debate more and more your company's CFOs in the discussion around sustainability, which is a very good thing. So companies also face a flooding of sustainability surveys, questionnaires, and there's many rankings done by investors groups, analysts, NGOs, or media. This is just one of them, the Carbon Disclosure Project, one of many, which is endorsed by many investors, which is basically asking thousands and thousands of companies and cities to account for and to be transparent about a bunch of environmental risks. Here, remember that we talk about voluntary disclosure. But think about the possibility that is likely that countries and regulators are to act on the transition to a low carbon economy. It will have far bigger implications and requirements concerning companies' greenhouse gas emissions because it will involve different market mechanisms or carbon tax in certain markets to decarbonize the energy system. Finally, from the point of view of your employees, it is certainly influencing them. It's leading, in fact, to higher productivity, higher earnings, and customer ratings. You see from this Gallup survey the difference between the top 25% company companies in employee engagement and the bottom 25%. So how does it compare between the two groups? Plus 10% in customer ratings, plus 21% in productivity, in profitability, minus 37% in absenteeism, lower turnover. So you can see it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue for companies to have their employees engaged so that they are loyal, excited, and committed to their work. We know that employee engagement can be very hard to achieve, but we can see it's a huge deal because companies can gain a true competitive advantage if they focus on employee engagement. Pardon me. So just to summarize different ways in which businesses are impacted by social and environmental issues, you have a bunch of these factors here. I wanted to say something also to recognize something else, which is the fact that many people still are probably skeptical or not convinced about climate change, the fact that it's man-made, or they might tell you that there is in fact nothing we can do about it. And we might regret that, but that's still a fact. And the point is this: all opinions are okay in the end, but it doesn't really matter. What matters in a purely business context is that your key stakeholders, regulators, consumers, investors, already act regardless on their own belief that climate change is real. So just this fact creates a big reality today that has a lot of impact on businesses in terms, for example, on increasing standards and regulations, increasing demand for transparency and disclosure, the strong correlation between consumers' perception, recommendation, purchase investment decisions, the strong correlation between employee engagement to productivity and earnings. In addition, you have very real impacts of social and environmental issues in terms of food, water security, rising costs of energy and utilities, increasing pressures and risks that it implies on the supply chains because of the depletion of resources. So essentially, the need for companies to engage more strongly and more strategically in sustainability has never been greater. And it's no longer an option. But the more relevant question we find is how can you manage to create a real and meaningful impact? So this leads us to part two. And what we saw previously, the slide with all the different factors, between the line, this was, there were elements of a business case for a more strategic sustainability approach. But of course, it's not going to be that easy. It will take a lot more than that to elevate sustainability in your companies to a point where your company recognizes that it can be a driver for opportunities for growth, developing solutions that respond to the demands of customers as well as to the needs of the planet. And let's say in the luckier event where companies start to understand both the risk and the opportunity aspect, then there is another stumbling block for you, which is to ingrain sustainability across your company's business priorities. So it's basically integrated in all the levels of decision making. This is, again, as such, a vast topic. So I will only focus on a couple of critical aspects and solutions. Let's just start and let's kind of hear it from the CEOs. Yeah, thank you. I put again the slide showing barriers, issues, barriers stopping companies to invest more in sustainability. I wanted to put that in parallel with a couple of quotes from CEO. Let's look at the first one because they are really insightful. Corporate philanthropy is nice to have, but it is not connected to the business. If it's not connected to the business, it can easily be cut in difficult economic conditions, implying that you will need to be able to demonstrate that the investment in sustainability will provide fundamental improvements to the business and really increase business opportunities. And only then will it be harder to be cut in good or in bad times. Next quote. Embedding sustainability is easier when it makes sense as the right thing to do and makes business sense. So both are saying that it's fine, the moral imperative behind sustainability, the urgency, it's important, but ultimately it needs to make business sense, and it needs to do it in a clear, justified, and quantifiable way. So building a compelling business case is absolutely critical. Next one, to be sustainable in itself, sustainability must lead to business value. It's not one particular CEO, it's many who say this. Actually, these quotes are from the UN Global Compact Accenture survey. 37% of CEOs report that the lack of a clear link to business value drivers is one of their major barriers, stopping them from taking faster action on sustainability. So I think those are great insights because they force us to be a lot more down to earth. We hear a lot of concepts, and I think they might be a bit misused or misunderstood. When we talk about shared value, value for society, ultimately, your CEO will need to see a lot more than that to be inspired to move strong and fast on sustainability. She will want to see that it is justified, and they will want to see a case based on traditional value terms for the brand, for the productivity, the profitability, business opportunities, etc. And you need to make it very clear that it will lead to more business value. I couldn't resist including a last quote, which I think maybe your killer argument after everything else has failed potentially, but it says there is no choice for businesses but to get on the road to sustainability. It is unsustainable to be unsustainable. So I think you cannot deny that. We saw one aspect was the importance to make a compelling business case. It's not any business case, it's a winning business case, one that will beat other scenarios that you have for consideration. We also highlighted the importance of demonstrating the link to business value. So let's look at in more details at this Global Compact Accenture survey, because it shows us what the CEOs think are the most important value drivers for sustainability. The top three, interestingly, brand, trust, reputation, potential for revenue growth and cost reduction, 49%, consumer demand. Those three top ones are market factors, and they influence CEOs more than employee engagement, more than their personal motivation or pressure from government and regulators, which is a good sign. Now, the fact that we have the brand and trust and reputation at the top, I wanted to also kind of diffuse a misunderstanding. It doesn't mean that we will fall back in the earlier problem we saw, which is that there's a lot of PR and words, but not a lot of impact. On the contrary, we've seen how a company is perceived on sustainability makes a big difference to consumers' decision. But it's not going to be down to one quick PR, one quick marketing activity. It will be down to consumers' trust in both the quality of a product or a brand, as well as the trust they have in the quality of the company as a whole. And building this kind of trust takes time. I wanted to illustrate with one company, Unilever, which pretty much ticked all of these drivers. They created a sustainable living plan. They communicated very successfully on it, and it helped actually enhance the brand trust and reputation, so it's tick. They announced a goal to double their revenues, so they are definitely going for it on the money and revenue growth side of it, so it's another tick. Their consumer-related goal is to help 1 billion people improve their health and well-being. So you can see it's tightly linked to consumer demand and customer, so it's another tick. Personal motivation is actually a very important factor. In fact, if your CEO is not supporting sustainability fully or doesn't understand how it impacts the business, then it's really going to be difficult to move away from a nice-to-have kind of thing. In the case of Unilever, it's a big tick. Paul Polman, the CEO, has demonstrated it many times, but one quote which I particularly like from him is to say, our products must meet consumer expectations of value and values. This actually inspired also the name of the consultancy I'm implementing, Values Added. So the product needs to do obviously what it's promised to do, but it also has to be in line with the consumer's expectations in terms of environmental and social impact. And we saw in the study, as far as the employee engagement and recruitment, that it's an important point. It's also a cornerstone of the Sustainable Living Plan. The next criteria, water, food infrastructure. The goal of Unilever is to source 100% of a product's raw material in a sustainable way, and also to enhance the livelihood of people across the value chain. So they are looking at this criteria quite a lot as well, another tick. And of course, the last one, investor shareholder pressure, has been playing favorably for Unilever, and it doesn't hurt the case, but it's also a tick in their respect. So an interesting case of a company pulling pretty much all of these triggers. Now, of course, every company, every case is different. And the question I want you maybe to go away with is to think about what are the trigger points that are most making sense for your company, and what are the levers and trigger points, I mean, it's the same, which are most likely to help create a sense of urgency. Because ultimately you want to move, you want to create this sense of urgency. At the same time, sustainability is associated with long-term impact. So that's a challenge in itself. I wanted to basically highlight 3 types of drivers that typically will inspire CEOs or senior managements to move. The first is around intangibles, and it's going to be a relevant category for you if you think that with sustainability you can address issues around PR, you can enhance your brand value after an accident, for example, or if it can improve the way you recruit talent, or if you have issues around employees' engagement. So that's one category then to press. The other one, revenue and cost. So it's basically around profitability. You may have a revenue issue, lack of innovation. To be honest, certain industries and companies will have more ease to get into this type of trigger points. For example, if you can directly provide energy efficiency solutions to your consumers, for example, in buildings, or if you can help them reduce their energy or water footprint. So it's not necessarily applicable to all industries and companies, but if you can play this lever, all the better. The third one is probably the most tragic and most kind of susceptible to create the urgency, long-term risk. If you think you can do an argument around the fact that if there is enough long-term risk at stake, threatening the survival of your company, if you didn't introduce sustainability. For example, if there was an industry challenge like a risk of disruption from a competitor, then it's one to action. Next, so basically before that, the question again for you is which of these triggers best apply to your organization, and make sure to make a very strong case on that particular set of triggers. You will also obviously need to analyze the status quo and the future implications of engaging in sustainability on your products, implications on markets, on whether it's addressing certain risks, trends, externalities, is it meeting your stakeholders' expectations? What does that mean in terms of profitability? How does that translate in terms of your organizational structure, your competitive position, as well as, importantly, explaining the consequences of not doing anything about it. So what's the implication of non-action as well? Another critical aspect is to be able to articulate, which sometimes is missing, especially if you focus a lot more on the revenue cost profitability aspect, but you forget to kind of paint the bigger picture. So it's important to articulate the bigger picture. At the same time, you have the other obstacle, companies doing that, but not coming up with clear and concrete measurable goals. So articulate your bigger picture, but break it down into something that is really absolutely measurable. And along doing that, another important point is to try to generate short-term wins. Or leverage existing initiatives in your company, because that's a way where you're going to be able to communicate on these early wins and enhance your case to go forward with sustainability. Pardon me. Next, we saw the lack of link between sustainability and business value. We saw it was a big barrier. So how do you focus sustainability towards your core value creation? Think about, indeed, what are the most important financial, social, and environmental aspects that are impacting your business? Those are the ones that you will need to tackle when you are tackling sustainability. And this is where the concept of materiality is coming. It's coming from actually the financial reporting world, as you might know. An issue is material if the company should report it. Otherwise, if it doesn't report it, it could cause the user to make an incomplete or incorrect decision based on that. So basically, any information that you can't leave out in order to be true and fair with regards to the decision making of your stakeholder. So mechanically, materiality goes hand in hand with stakeholder engagement. It will take into account the issues of most concern for them, internal and external stakeholders. And this understanding of those concerns will help you determine if such or such issue are a risk that you need to mitigate, or is it an opportunity that you need to pursue. The materiality issues will be similar within certain industries, but they will vary according to certain characteristics like the company size, location, the maturity level of its internal, external stakeholders, its practices, the extent of your stakeholder engagement, because you will not get the same feedback and same material issues mentioned if you focus your stakeholder engagement on investors as opposed to consumers or regulators. This materiality analysis is going to be helpful when you redesign or build a strategy, basically, because it will help to tailor the strategy around the issues that have the most significant social and environmental impacts, therefore will also become more strategic for your organizations. Leading to this point, well, on the right-hand side, a mapping of this materiality analysis could look like the charts you see on the right-hand side. I wanted to also briefly bring this value aspect from another point of view, which is that your sustainability focus, and it's kind of logical, is going to, the focus of your sustainability initiatives is going to be where your company creates most value. You will find it through your materiality analysis. But it also means that your social and environmental initiatives need to be coherent with that. And it also means that the way you design your sustainability structure is important, and who it is going to report to. So it will be also most effective if your structure as such, tackling sustainability, the team that works on it, is closely working or reporting to an area where the company creates value. So what is the type of value? For example, a utility company, it will be more logical that they are closely linked with how you produce or consume energy. So they need to be interacting a lot with that side of the business. As a retailer, most of the value you create is through your supply chain. As a manufacturer, a lot of it comes from the production processes and the way you procure your different components, etc. I wanted to bring an example, which is Majid Al-Futtaim. MAF, to call them like this, is managing, as you know, shopping malls, hotels, properties in the region, retail and leisure properties. And what do they do? A couple of their big focus areas are completely coherent with what we just said. So one is around resource efficiency. Encouraging, for example, their business tenants to reduce water energy use and waste within their stores, encouraging them to commit to green lease or green clauses, and trying to reduce the overall environmental impact of the properties they manage, and whenever to gain some kind of sustainable building certification for some of their buildings. Again, it makes perfect sense with the core value creation of the group. Another big focus area is on labor conditions and the supply chain. And again, I mean, it makes perfect sense, making sure they partner with fair suppliers and so on. Interestingly, if I'm not mistaken, at least last year, in terms of organization, they have a sustainability team which is physically part of Magellan Full-Time Properties. That's one entity of the group. And again, that's supporting the point that it's going to be strategic and important to place the sustainability team where the organization creates the most value. So that's also a key point. Words of conclusion. To be honest, it's a long journey. I'm bringing a chart that was made by John Elkington, the man who coined the triple bottom line expression. Was recently in Dubai, actually, John Elkington at the World Green Economy Summit. And it's just a reminder that it's not only a long-term journey for your company, it's a long-term journey as such. So there's been different waves of sustainability since the 60s, 70s. The first UN conference on the environment was in Stockholm in 72. You can hear the speech made on this occasion, and you can copy-paste every single thing that is said then, and it's still relevant today. You have different waves through to the years 2000. There's been a plateau with the global financial crisis, and we're kind of in a down phase a bit. And then it's a crossroad. So the coming years are absolutely, and this year is going to be absolutely crucial. So this point is also to say that as far as your organization is concerned, we know that it's also going to be down to how much or how high is the level of understanding and awareness on those broader social environmental issues and how they affect your business. So there needs to be a lot of awareness and understanding of these issues. The second point that can characterize the journey that you're getting onto is basically you're going to go from looking at sustainability from a risk management approach mostly to opportunities. For example, starting by tackling cost inefficiencies to then proactively improve your cost efficiencies, or going from purely a brand protection exercise to something that can really differentiate your brand and enhance your brand. And from a license to operate to looking at the full life cycle management of product services that you do and gaining new markets, etc. So from risk to opportunities, basically. We said at the very beginning, it's a continually evolving process. We talked about mostly a couple of aspects in terms of materiality, stakeholder engagement, and making the case, but basically you will have to do many business cases, not just one. It will also involve the stakeholder engagement itself is ongoing. Your strategy will need to be integrating into your business's overall strategy. So there's going to be adjustments, processes that are very important. Planning and implementation, employee engagement itself, we haven't talked too much about, is a big topic. So it's a continuing process. And the last kind of point is on innovation. We know sustainability is a formidable engine for that. And I wanted to bring our Albert Einstein on this. I think he's kind of well placed, but it's also an interesting quote. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. So, you know, there is a close connection between obviously innovation and sustainability. There are new problems, they need new solutions to address them. And it can lead to deeper transformational changes. There's examples in certain industries where those transformational changes are coming very fast because of sustainability issues. A couple of examples in the automotive industry, the electric cars and the emergence of that segment is bringing huge transformations. They may not be that visible today, but a car that is running on electricity also runs on smarter systems and more connected systems. So the automotive industry is, you know, slowly going from just selling cars and status to selling mobility solutions, using these smart systems to adapt to different smart or transport and mobility needs. and also you have Google interestingly going on that segment with self-drivers cars. So it's an industry that is definitely going through deep changes. And another example, looking at the utilities sector, very clearly also in the region, going from being just a producer of electricity to becoming more focusing on orchestrating the energy consumption of people. So consumers can now communicate with the producers of energy via the smart grids. You can opt for different kinds of energy consumptions based on your needs and based on the base load. So those transformations are already happening and they're going to happen more and more strongly. So innovation is closely linked, and with this potentially replacing existing, business models, existing processes with fundamentally different products and services. It's not without risk. It can be daunting. It involves indeed changing business models, but and it involves a lot of technical advance in collaboration and so on. But this can also create huge opportunities for your business, as well as creating major disruptions. So on this, this kind of concludes the webinar. On this innovation note, and I'm handing over to you, I guess, or Hoda, if there is any question. I'm continuing. Okay, so you can, I guess, type in questions if you have any. There's another interesting one. Yeah, on budget. Pardon me. So what about budget? Okay, and it's a very tricky one, because it's going to be one of the tests to whether or not you will integrate sustainability into your business priorities. So it's an overall challenge. Because also when you start designing sustainability strategies, you are looking at the long term, but you will need short-term money to materialize and to kind of start working on these long-term issues. And we know that the attention of your business is going where the money goes, so you definitely want to negotiate or kind of work hard on supporting your strategy with budgets. You will, we talked a bit about developing plans and making the case where we will, as part of the case, you need to identify potential gaps in your capabilities or skills. So this comes with costs of hiring different capabilities or personnel that you don't have. We talked about the cost aspect a bit in slide on making the case. There's going to be at least some minimum investments to kickstart some initiatives. And mind you, something that is frequently mentioned is that since sustainability is driving savings, then this is where you get the budget out of the savings, but it doesn't necessarily go from that pocket to your pocket. It's not that automatic. So you will still, and also to bring an example, if let's say one of your focus is teleconference, so you have found that you need to focus on reducing the cost of travel and reduce your footprint, then that will require to invest in teleconference systems and potentially upgrade your IT systems. So whilst there's going to be savings out of the travel budget, your IT budget will need to have some kind of initial investment to create the capability to do that. So there's going to be trade-offs, negotiations between different departments. There's also, of course, a whole chapter on partnerships and corporate donations that you can build over time, as well as a budget for reporting and communicating on what you do. So it's definitely an important question and one of the most tricky one. One is on measuring the performance. Measuring sustainability is an effective way to measure sustainable performance. It's also a very important domain. Going back to how you are going to set targets and KPIs for your sustainability strategy. So it's I don't know if we have the time to get into the proper framework to do that. You have different types of targets. So first of all, choose specific types of targets relative to your goals. You can have absolute targets or relative targets, for example, in terms of emissions. The definition of these targets, of course, will need to be smart. Smart for measures, kind of simple, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. That's another whole chapter to discuss. So it's also an area that is one of the problems coming frequently, sometimes because of the definition, the lack of clear objectives, as we said, whether the targets were actually smartly designed or not, or whether there was simply any kind of a monitoring and evaluation system included at all in your strategy. So the lack of measuring performance can really hurt your sustainability efforts. Also, if you think of companies that had uncoordinated initiatives, as we find is very often the case, it means that very frequently you have organizations running different initiatives from different people from different departments having different target systems, different ways of measuring performance, and it's completely impossible to reconcile and make sense of all these different ways of running initiatives. So there's going to be also a lot of work to better coordinate and streamline the different initiatives that you run. And a question by Awal Ahmed, what do you think about CSR investing programs in sports, especially for fans to engage and interact? It's, again, all depending on if you will, the materiality exercise or the process of identifying what are the themes that are carrying the biggest risk and opportunities for your business. I would, so for example, is health an important theme relating to the purpose of your business? So if that's the case, you have, for example, companies like Coca-Cola and FMCGs focusing a lot on sports. The message between the lines is not sports per se, but is healthy lifestyle. And so think about how it relates to the purpose of your business. There's no yes or no, it's good or bad. It needs to make sense for your industry. It needs to be touching on an area potentially carrying a certain risk or to mitigate or opportunity for your business. Thank you very much for these questions and for your participation. That's the kind of closing word. So thank you very much, and hope every success for your companies in your sustainability efforts. And see you at the CSR Summit. Thanks.